Hello everybody, today we're going to be doing a really quick deck tech for one of my very first commander decks, Borborygmos Enraged. So he is a Gruul commander for 4 generic, 2 red, and 2 green for a 7/6 trampler. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your library and put all land cards into your hand, and the rest go into your graveyard. The most important part is this last line here. Discard a land card, Borborygmos Enraged deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So the basic goal of the deck is to get as many lands as possible into my hand and then use them to remove creatures or remove players. It's very Gruul stompy, but in a very untraditional way, because it kind of allows you to politic, where you basically just fill your hand with lightning bolts. And the deck runs a couple of pieces that other decks don't run, which I think makes it really interesting. The first one is Storm Cauldron, which is a light stacks piece, light, strong word. Each player gets to play additional land drops, but whenever a land is tapped for mana, you get to return it to the owner's hand. So what's really nice about this is you immediately kind of just fill your hand with all of these bolts. Now everyone else is really upset about this, but if you have Borborygmos in play, you don't care as much. To kind of keep the train going, we run some effects like Snake Umbra and Keen Sense. These allow us to draw every time we use Borborygmos' ability to deal damage to a player, which is very useful for keeping our hand filled and keeping the train going. We also run some effects like Gratuitous Violence and Dictate of the Twin Gods in order to double the damage that we're dealing, and effects like Praetor's Council and Creeping Renaissance to return all of the lands back from our graveyard to our hand. One key thing about the deck is that I run almost exclusively basics. So I'm playing 44 lands here, 1 Gruul Turf, then the rest are forest and mountains. And we'll see why this is important in a second. So we do run the very kind of like normal kind of ramp spells. We've got the Goblin and Archomancer, Geode Golem to cheat out Borborygmos since he's so expensive, your Orrery for the extra land drops, then you've got your Cultivate, your Rampant Growth, your Kodama's Reaches, etc. Now this deck also runs a lot of non-traditional ramp, and that's what we're going to be seeing here. Now these don't put lands into play, but they fetch you basics into your hand, which normally isn't very good, but with this deck can be quite strong. So Scouting Trek lets me get all of my basics and put them on top of my library. So if I'm playing with my Snake Umbra here, suddenly that's just every basic. I've got 40 something basics in the deck, so whenever you get this off, at least 20 lands you've got just going right after each other. That's 60 damage without any of your damage doublers. Sprouting Vines, if you have a player who is going a little crazy, you can use their Storm to get all these basics in your hand and punish them. And a couple other effects that you may not have seen anyone else play. Rowan lets you draw an extra card if you draw a basic. Rite of Spring lets you turn your hand into basics, etc. These are all things. Now, Scapeshift isn't, I guess, a very traditional card for this deck, but with stuff like Creeping Renaissance and Praetor's Grasp, you can recycle all of the lands you sacrifice. We're not doing, you could play Valakut if you had one. I don't, and then that Scapeshift would get a lot better. And on top of that, Borborygmos often runs a kind of unusual game plan with playing lots of fogs. So we don't have many creatures, and we kind of only have one big guy, and we'd really rather not use that damage on our opponent's creatures to stop us from taking damage. So we run 8 fogs to help protect us while we're threatening everybody else. Now, for the normal parts of the deck, we've got Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves for protection. We've got Rurik Thar to kind of slow our opponents down and hate them out a little bit. Cinder Vines as well. We've got a Leyline of Punishment, so people can't gain the life and damage can't be prevented. Stop those pesky Teferi's protection players. Rhythm of the Wild to give our stuff haste. And then we've got some kind of a few land payoffs. We've got Rubble Hulk, Baloths, Omnath, and Sylvan Awakening. And then we've just got a couple cards. We've got some card draw in Soul's Majesty and Abundance. Multani is also just a big beater. Groundskeeper, Fine Crasher, Ewit, and Acidic Slime. Now guys, that was my Borborygmos Enraged deck tech. Let me know what you think. I think the deck can be a lot of fun to play in less, I guess, competitive play groups. The deck plays a lot slower. It is an 8-cost commander. If you're hitting 1 to 2 pieces of ramp, you can play it pretty consistently around turn 6, but that's still pretty late for some play groups, but I think it's a blast when he actually gets rolling. All right, thanks everyone, and let me know if you want to see any other deck techs.